Welcome to podcast number 3, and it's Tuesday the 8th of April, and there's been a lot going on, Andy.
Yeah, and we have a different start to the podcast today.
Indeed we do. So yesterday, we, along with a lot of other people, I don't know, maybe 80 or so people, were down outside the Magistrates Court in Llanelli.
Robert, why are we here?
Well, today, 5 farmers are being taken to court with a preliminary hearing because they refused access to GreenGen to come on their land. And we're here with a lot of demonstrators from the anti-pylon groups, and we're including this part of the podcast on the demonstration.
I'm here today to support the farmers, the landowners that are being brought to court. I think it's totally inappropriate, if I'm honest with you. There are ways to deal with this, and that is through negotiation around the table. They've chosen to do this. They've chosen to choose 5 people, 5 families to bring to court. It could have been me, it could have been anybody else, but they've chosen those 5 people. We had a meeting on Saturday morning, trying to avoid today, trying to cancel today, but there was no negotiation at all. You know, it was just so disappointing. And when we asked them, and in fairness, Adam asked 4 times on Saturday, what are you going to do if we ask again to have these proceedings through the Welsh language? And they refused 4 times to really answer that question. It was shocking. We feel, with regards to the Welsh language issue, that we're going back to the 1960s. We've come from there. We have a Welsh Language Act which gives equal status to English and Welsh within our country. What's happening here today is a refusal for proceedings to be held through the medium of Welsh. And you know, the vast majority of the farmers involved on the Tywi line, certainly within Carmarthenshire, are Welsh-speaking residents.
Well, I can't quite understand their business ethos with this sort of policy. It doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do them any good. It doesn't do any good to the people involved with the construction. And you know, there's always going to be that animosity. And if, God forbidding, this plan does go ahead, well, that's all they're going to get is people sort of being obstructive and hampering the development, and they're in for a hell of a time.
These people should not be prosecuted for simply defending their land and not allowing the surveyors on. I mean, we've been saying for years, put the pylons underground, put the power lines underground. The technology is there. It's just about the same price as doing the power line, doing the pylons. So underground them, but they're not listening. And now they've taken people to court on very, very flimsy grounds. And it's just outrageous.
It's to show solidarity for those who've been forced to be here today because of GreenGen's actions. You know, they've been summoned to appear before a court for trying to protect the beauty of the Tywi Valley. So it's only right that we stop the exploitation of our natural resources and for communities to have a greater say in how those resources are used. Well, big corporate companies like GreenGen are only interested in one thing, which is profit. And they argue that the undergrounding costs more. We dispute that until we have an independent analysis. Now, we had an emergency meeting with them on Saturday morning to try to stop this court case going on. They absolutely refused. And they were still arguing that it would cost about 9 times more to underground the cables. Now, we said, well, wait for the independent analysis from the IAG to publish its report before you proceed with any court hearings. And they said no. they wouldn't wait a couple of weeks until that report was published, which we will see then how much the cost of undergrounding actually is.
It's affecting us immensely, and all the views, and it's right next to the town. I don't think many people are fully aware with how it's going to really affect them. I think until the pylons are actually there. There's one way that can be sorted by putting it underground.
Linking it all up to the natural grid by having it underground. Yeah. Because having a pylon would be an absolute eyesore. And they're not really there for our benefit, they're there for the company benefit to make as much money as possible.
I'm here to say that the lines should go underground. We should be thinking in terms of the fact that Wales is very keen on its future generations, and we shouldn't be damaging our economy, and it's pretty low income anyway, and our tourism and our farming and our wildlife and our everything else. They should go underground because it's about the same cost.
Well, I want to show my support to local people and myself to stop putting ugly pylons across the Towie Valley. They'll also be dangerous. I'm not against electricity. I personally think they should be put underground. There's so much profit in this. They're throwing money at certain things, trying to blackmail or bribe people, and very, very rude way that they're going about it. And I think they're going to have their work cut out. I believe that the protests will get quite vociferous because they'll force people into that way of thinking.
So Adam, great to see you here today. Your comment about civil disobedience seems to have really caught the headlines. Do you think it's also caught the public mood?
Yeah, I think it was very important, I think, to communicate the level of feeling that is out there. I mean, anyone who lives in our communities will know this, but I think it is important in terms of the national discussion that people realise what the level of community feeling was, and now that we are now at this stage where individuals are being presented with these applications for warrants, then the community is going to be behind them, and we're here outside the court in Llanelli. We've got a long history in Carmarthenshire of the Beasleys, for example, that were facing bailiffs, because they wanted to have bilingual forms, and the community got behind them. Then we had the position with Llangendain, where they were facing a position that happened in many other communities across Wales, where the village was going to be drowned to create a reservoir. They prevented surveyors from having access to their land in order to save their community. There's a tradition here, and then somebody mentioned this morning, of course, the Rebecca riots. So this sense of communities standing together against injustice, it runs very, very deep, doesn't it? In Carmarthenshire and in Wales, and I think it was very important that somebody articulated. Look, if you think that you can steamroller, if you can bulldoze through, when a community feels, this is wrong. If in a democracy you do not listen to, I think, valid and reasonable arguments that the community is putting forward, then you're going to find you are going to face opposition. And really, it's very sad, unfortunately, that we've tried to get the company to step back from the brink here. They've obviously, it would appear that they're refusing to do that. I don't think the community is going to take that, and simply, it would be naive to think the community is just going to simply step aside. The community is going to continue to oppose, and I think it's going to get stronger.
Well, they were only served with the documents on Friday, they were told. They're supposed to be in court on Monday. They've had no time to prepare anything. There should be an adjournment to allow us to get proper legal advice and to help.
Do you think that the issue is gaining political traction in Cardiff Bay?
It's gaining traction from parties like Plaid Cymru and, to be fair to Jane Dodds, the Liberal Democrats as well, but I'm afraid it's met by a stony silence from Welsh Government. I think, as we know, Ed Miliband is insistent on, getting more green energy produced, and it means for him pylons are an unfortunate byproduct of that, but he doesn't matter. He doesn't care about that. He wants them built, and he wants green energy. So despite the protestations from local communities.
I guess it comes down to whether Welsh Labour is prepared to take a divergent route from Westminster. What do you feel about that?
Well, I'm not holding my breath on that, because we've seen with the cuts to winter fuel, we've seen with the cuts to the personal independence payments, the true child benefit cap. We know that intrinsically Welsh Labour are opposed, but they will not go public on that, and I'm afraid they will do the same with the pylons.
Some people feel that they're caving in because of the costs involved if they lose the case, so no judgment here, because everybody is on their own, to be honest, and instead of taking us all together, and this includes me, it could be all of us together, they're picking off one at a time. So it's very difficult up there at the moment. There's a legal team of 8 or 9 of them, and we've got one. So if you're thinking about David and Goliath earlier, this is really David and Goliath though, but
Right, so we're away from Llanelli and we're back here again. And so what was the outcome of yesterday's court action?
So, sort of good and bad news from our point of view. In one respect, it was a moral victory because the plaintiffs were granted the hearing to be held in Welsh, and a Welsh-speaking judge was brought in, and so that will happen going forward. So that was good news, and quite rightly so. But the trouble is that they've given us an adjournment. They've given the case an adjournment through until the 22nd of April. Well, here we're on the 8th of April already, so that's what we're not talking more than 2 weeks. And so far, as came through from the interviews, the 2 weeks' notice was all that was granted for the farmers to prepare their case, to talk to lawyers. 2 weeks' notice, whereas Green Gen had sort of probably months to prepare for this with their team of 8 people and with our one lawyer. This is David Goliath thing. So they've been given 2 weeks to prepare their case, which is not long enough, but at least there is a little bit more time for them to put together the case. So it pushes forward, and we see what comes from that.
Right, and as Anne said, it's individuals in the hot seat, as it were, in the court.
Yeah, I think from what we gather, there are about 8 landowners, partly up the Teifi Valley and partly in the Towie Valley, who are being taken to court. And these are each individual cases, so these will just roll forward. And I'm not completely clear about the legal process now with the other 7, but they are test cases, so I don't know why or how they have picked these particular farmers. It feels a little bit that they've been targeted. One wouldn't be surprised about that, given the sort of bullying techniques that Green Gen pursue. And one feels for them, because they're farmers, some of them are elderly, not used to this, never been in court before, and all of a sudden, here they are, they're in the spotlight, they're in court, very uncomfortable position to be in. And as you say, Ann Davies has described it as David Goliath, and it really does feel like that.
Yeah, and that court building is quite sort of, it's a bit scary. I was only outside there, but just had that feeling of, I'm actually glad it's not me.
No, I agree. I couldn't get in. They were limiting the number of people who were given access, although we hear that there was still plenty of space in the press gallery. But I imagine it was a highly charged atmosphere and not pleasant at all. Just probably before we finish, Andy, just sort of pull out 1 or 2 points that came from the interview with the three politicians, the three politicians.
That's true.
Yeah, I think we just commented already on Ann Davies, who really highlighted this David and Goliath point, which is very relevant, and the railroading that has gone on here with Green Gen feels like a bullying approach, which is characteristic of what we already know about Green Gen. Adam Price's points were very interesting and nuanced, and of course he was the one who came out with the point about this could lead to social unrest. Well, I think he first of all said civil disobedience, which is an even stronger point, and I was very interested in the parallels he was drawing to previous history of Welsh disobedience in resisting attempts to encroach on Welsh heritage, Welsh resources and so on. And he made some very valid points there. And Kevin Campbell, I thought, was good on the question of are we gaining traction in Cardiff Bay? Is this going to make a difference to Welsh Labour? Will they now have to sit up and take notice? And I think first he was saying, well, so far there's stony silence. They sort of seem to be tone deaf to this issue, still very much tied in with Westminster, David Miliband and so forth. But I think he indicated that this is going to put pressure on them. It must put pressure on them because this is highly significant. And the media coverage over these cases has been significant. It's now gained real national coverage. Radio 4 programme, Yesterday Today programme, and the Daily Telegraph this morning. And I think there may be a follow-up in Daily Telegraph as well. So the national media have really got on board with this story, and that's going to inevitably put further pressure on Eluned Morgan and her government to focus on the issues here. Yeah.
And all that is starting to bring home is that this is different and special in some kind of way, isn't it? You know, there are a lot of eyes on this. It's not just about one run of pylons anymore.
I think that's it. And of course, the big thing is undergrounding. That is what this is all about. And trying to force Green Gen and indeed Welsh Labour to some extent to investigate properly the cable ploughing option, the new technology.
At the risk of kind of being repetitive, that old chestnut of it's 5 times, it's 8 times, it's 10 times more expensive to put the cables underground keeps coming up. And as long as it keeps coming up, we will keep on saying, no, it's roughly the same cost. It's difficult to make direct comparisons. Someone actually said, you could put the pylons underground. I know what they meant, but they're not the same thing. But what we are saying is that we have evidence that it's roughly the same price, the same cost, and we will keep on saying that because it's true.
Yeah, and more I'm hearing people saying, what is the agenda here from Green Gen? Why are they refusing to do this? Is there a financial benefit to them in doing pylons as opposed to undergrounding?
Yeah, well, there's a hidden agenda there.
Yeah.
And we don't know. We genuinely don't know what it is, but they would like to pretend that undergrounding by cable ploughing, which we've all seen it demonstrated, it's been costed, we know it exists, but they do seem to want to pretend that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.